this point, let's shift gears here. Mike Klis, our 9 News Broncos insider, joins us every Friday, brought to you by Fitness Gallery. Mike, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here. We heard a report earlier in the week that the Denver Broncos inquired about Stefon Diggs. I found that interesting, but also, in addition to that, if they're calling about Diggs as recent as maybe a week or two ago, is the door still open to add a veteran wide receiver and maybe a hunch of who that might be?
Yeah, I would classify the interest, if money talks in free agency, and of course it does. If you want to gauge how interested a team is, ultimately the dollars are what measure that. And by dollars, the Broncos were nominally interested in Diggs and nominally interested in Kupp. They checked in. They thought because they were 31, both of those guys are 31, about to turn 32, and injury plagued in recent years. Diggs with the ACL last year, midway through the season, did play well in the first half of the season. So the Broncos, I think, were thinking, hey, maybe you can get these guys on a discount. I don't know what kind of price tag they were thinking. $5 million, $6 million, $8 million a year, something like that for a guy. That's not unreasonable to think that, but it wound up becoming insane. Their markets. Some of these teams have a lot of cap space and don't care what the market value is. They'll pay over it. And Kupp wound up getting $17.5 million for 1 year with Seattle. There's a couple other years tacked into his contract, but for all intents and purposes, it's $17.5 million with Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And Stefon Diggs, no one's seen the numbers, the details yet, but it looks like $23 million a year.
Crazy,
and that's crazy for a guy coming off an ACL who's going to turn 32 years old in November.
Who's also been a headache.
Yeah, exactly. He's a diva. And, divas aren't what they used to be in the NFL when you go back to T.O. and Randy Moss, but still Diggs is, he has been a bit of a headache. And so the Broncos never really engaged. Once they got into serious negotiations, the Broncos weren't in on either receiver. But your second point, Zach, I agree. I do think the Broncos, I think it does show that the Broncos kind of want a bridge receiver from Courtland Sutton, their number one veteran, and their kind of their latest version of their three amigos, which is Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, and Troy Franklin. They need another guy in there, and preferably a veteran. And really, you look at who's available left on the market. You got Keenan Allen, who had a nice year. He's going to be 33, or he is 33.
Yeah, he's 33.
He had 70 catches for a real bad Bears offense last year and 7 touchdowns. So he's 33, but it looks like he still has some juice left. And then you got Elijah Moore, who was a second-round draft pick just 4 years ago, just turned 25 yesterday, but his production has been, that number 2.5 type receiver. He's a 45 to 60 catch guy, and he would fit. But my guess is he's represented by CAA. That's a big, powerful, aggressive agency. And they're probably wanting to set his market based on youth and potential versus what teams look at, which is production.
Mike, what about a guy like Amari Cooper? We've been talking about him going back and forth.
He fell off so much last year. Cleveland and the Bills combined, he had 44 catches.
Yeah.
I mean, he tumbled. And so he's there, and he might be a nice stopgap, but I don't think Amari Cooper.
Mike, it's also been said that the Denver Broncos are not extending anyone until after the draft. Why do you believe that's the approach? Could there potentially be some ruffled feathers? And I'm thinking of Courtland Sutton, really. And do you believe that to be true yourself?
Well, Sutton will be, I think Sutton will be. They'll engage in talks. From what I understand, they met with his representative at the Combine, and there were some real good faith discussions there. They are going to talk contract, and the draft, shortly after the draft, was agreed upon there.
Okay.
All right.
And as far as the Nick Bonitos of the world, remember that draft class last year, Quinn Miners was done right before training camp. So, they didn't start there. I mean, it's kind of standard operating procedure. Pat Surtain got done, I think, 2 days before the start of the regular season. And then Jonathan Cooper and Garrett Bowles were in season. So those were the 4 big extensions. And then this year I think they will take care of Sutton beforehand. And then I think Nick Bonito will be the next guy up. Zach Allen, there really hasn't been any discussions. I think that will happen. I think that will probably be an in-season type deal.
Mike, we got about a minute left. Courtland Sutton's annual average value, do you believe it'll be over or under $26 million a year?
Under. Yeah, that if you're setting it at 26, I'm saying under. If you're saying $20 million a year, I'm saying over.
What about 23? What about 23?
What is he now? 14?
Yeah.
He's on the books for 14. So my guess, I'm guessing here, guys. I think I would say the number's around 22. Maybe he gets to 25. I don't know about that.
Mike,
that would surprise me.
Mike,
go ahead.
Mike, here's why I ask.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think something happened that could change the dynamics of that friendly conversation at the Combine. And that's the Stefon Diggs deal. And that's the Cooper Kupp deal. Because if I'm Courtland Sutton's agent, now I don't want to sign Courtland Sutton to $28 million a year. All right, Phil knows that. But if I'm Courtland Sutton's agent, I'm going, wait a second. Stefon Diggs off an ACL at 31 years old is getting $23 million a year. My client has caught 16 touchdowns the last 2 years, is a 1,000-yard guy, the number one receiver.
He's healthy.
Who's perfectly healthy, and you're going to pay me less than Stefon Diggs? No, it's not going to go like that. What do you think about that, Mike?
You could pound the gavel and let's do you be the attorney for Sutton and I'll be the prosecuting attorney for the state, and say that Stefon Diggs has way more production behind him overall in his 10-year career, and is a number one type receiver, where Sutton is somewhere between a 1 and a 2. Now he played like a 1 last year.
Yeah, because they view him as a number one. They view and if we're playing this game and I'm representing Sutton, I would say, well, he's also the captain of your team. Stefon Diggs has been a malcontent in the 2 spots that he's been. Maybe that offsets some of the on-field production to go with the ACL. I don't know. I think this negotiation is going to be not as maybe friendly as the jibber jabber at the Combine.
Well, maybe you just won the case right there. I can see.
Mike, you're the man. We love you, man. Have a great weekend. We'll do this again next week.
Right. Go get him, guys.
All right, there he goes. Mike Klis. That was fun.
You know what?
I'm proud about this.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're trying to get Courtland Sutton paid. I like that, Zach.
I can represent him. I can play that role. That was Mike Klis, brought to you by Fitness Gallery, home of the world's finest equipment. We need to circle back to that conversation here.